1,000 stories. Rob Fowler, real life glory. Turn it up, let it roll.
I was sat on a plane in Germany and I had Nicola Lafferty on one side and Steve Healy on the other side. And we were sat having a chat. We're about to take off to come home after an event. I can't remember which one it was. And next minute we looked down on near the cockpit and all these police started getting on to the flight. All guns, everything, and all the stewards, they were having a right chat at the front. So anyway, they started walking up and they were looking towards us. So we're looking around and we're having a bit of a laugh and saying, all right, we're going to be in prison. Anyway, they started walking up the plane, again, with the police, with armed police, and the stewards, and the captain was out and everything. And they got to our seat and then they turned around and said, Rob Fowler. And I went, I looked and I went, I must admit I was a little bit, not scared, but interested at that point. And then they turned around and said, can we see your passport? I went, yeah, I got my passport. I'll give him the passport. And then next minute they said, right, and they were checking the passport right through all the pages, trying to rip them, see if I'd ripped them or anything like that. And they passed it to one, passed it to the other. Have you got a driving license? I had my driving license on me, give him the driving license. Have you got the ticket for today? So I had it on my phone. And so I give them all the information, and they were looking, at first they were looking really mad and whatever. And then they started to relax a little bit when they seen, and then the stewardess turned around and went, we've never had this in all the time we've been flying, never had this before, ever. And I said, what? She said, Rob Fowler, meet Rob Fowler. And there was a handsome looking guy behind them, just come halfway up the plane, and his name was Rob Fowler. And then they said, we've never seen it before, it's never happened, you're flying to the same destination, and it sort of got mixed up that we thought you'd been an imposter and jumped on his seat. So anyway, they give him a seat. There was a seat just behind us. They give him a seat, and me and Steve Healy and Nicola sat there going, oh my God, everyone around us was all shocked. So anyway, we took off and they started flying off. So I got up, there was a seat next to this other fella behind us. So I got up, and it's a true story. And I got up, sat next to him. And when we sat down next to him, I said, hi, I'm Rob Fowler, and he's seen the cowboy hat and everything. He said, you're not the line dancer, are you? And I went, yeah, I'm the line dancer. He said, I've got all your emails. And I went, what? And he said, I've got all your emails. And I said, well, what do you do? And he said, I was performing to 10,000 people last night. I didn't tell him how many hours, but we had a good crowd, but it wasn't 10,000 people. But it turns out that he does the Rocky Horror Picture Show and everything, and he was on in Germany the night before, and to 10,000 people with all the acts and all different things, and he's a singer, he's an artist and everything. So he says, I've got all your emails. And even now, if you go on and put the real Rob Fowler, you'll see him. Sometimes he's in a basque, or he's 20 years older now than what he was then. So it's a lot of fun. So all the way back, we were chatting the whole way, had a right good laugh, and then everyone around us was taking pictures and all sorts. It was good. So we got off the plane. About 3 weeks later, this is true. I was in Manchester Airport flying out to somewhere, and I walked into a shop to have a look around to buy a Coke or something. And when I was in the shop, Robbie Fowler, the footballer. Now, he was, my God, I support Liverpool. So Robbie Fowler, the footballer, was in the shop. I think he was travelling for England, but he was in the shop anyway. So when I travel and I go teaching, I always have my cowboy hat with me and everything. So I went over and said, can I have your autograph? And that point in Liverpool, I was massive. My club, which I'll talk about in another story, but my club, Kirby Suite, we had 400 to 600 dancers every Monday night coming in. every sports centre across the whole of Liverpool. I had a class going on every day. And then also, I'd just come back from America from a big trip, and I'd won the European Championships. So in the newspaper was on the front news of the Echo, and then on the front news of one of the big tabloids from London, it was Robbie Fowler, the true European dance champion, and this one hasn't won anything, meaning Robbie Fowler, the footballer. So anyway, all the lads in the he told me all the lads on the team had put the picture on the wall when he come in and started taking the mickey out of it, being a line dancer and whatever. So that was really funny. And then when the newspaper came round to ask questions, they were asking, and I was saying, oh yeah, and my mum, this is Pauline Fowler. And back then, if you're not English, you might not know, but there was a sitcom, like what, Friends type thing, but it's called EastEnders. It's still running today, that's 30 years later. And they had two characters in there. Arthur Fowler was the husband and the dad, and then there was Michelle Fowler and Pauline Fowler. Well, Deanne's mum was called Michelle Fowler, and my mum was called Pauline Fowler. So they had a big write-up and they were all having a laugh, and my mum worked in the laundrette. So they went round the laundrette, and the laundrette was made up because they got full advertising. So my mum was Pauline Fowler working in a laundrette. My first wife, Michelle, was Michelle Fowler out of the sitcom. And then, so the name has been funny. The last story I'm going to say is quite funny. My dad, who sadly passed now, and my mum, my dad's name was Robbie Fowler as well. And he was brought up in Toxteth, in the Holy Land in Toxteth it's called. So they were sort of having a lot of things, because Robbie Fowler, the footballer, was from around that area. So my dad used to take me to my nan's, which was in it was called the Holy Land in Liverpool, in the Toxteth area, and I think a street was called David Street. So it was on David Street, and my dad told me the story. He said, when you were about 8, 9 years old, and then a little bit over, going on to 12, 13, he said, I went down the pub, and he said, how are you getting on? I said, oh yeah, I've got some Robbie and da-da-da-da. And I've got this, I've got Rob, my son, and Ian, the son, and he was telling the guys. And about 3 or 4 years later, he went back in the same pub. So when he went back in the same pub, his old friends were there, and he come over, he said, how are you doing? You must be doing really well. And he said, why is that? He said, well, your son, Robbie. And my dad said, what do you mean? He said, well, Robbie Fowler, he's your made of money. But instead of them turning around to my dad going, buy us a drink, they said, we're going to buy you one. So this guy bought my dad a drink. And then my dad went along with it for a bit of a joke at first. And then another guy came around and said, he introduced him and said, this is Robbie Fowler's dad. And they're going around, and he went around the pub. And he said for the whole day, he came back. He said, I went back to your nan's, my nan's. And he said, I was drunk. And they went mad at me. He said, but what I did do is for the next 3 weeks, we used to go back to Wigan, then back to my nan's. We used to go there every weekend. And then back to there. And he said he went in the pub 3 more times. And only on the 3rd time that he went back, he felt very guilty. And he felt guilty and told the guy. But why I wanted to start, and so that was the end. It was very funny. And it's all about the real Rob Fowler, please stand up. I'm telling you this because I found out a load of stories about my dad at his funeral, at the wake, and I was laughing my head off, absolutely laughing. I had no idea how he'd got on, what his stories he'd done and nothing. That was one of them. But all his football team, he used to play for Liverpool schoolboys, but then when he moved to Wigan, he was the manager of a local team. And he used to get up to all sorts, and I never knew anything about it. So when I came off there, I went, it was lovely and everything, but then it was also my boys don't know anything about my life. Nothing about my life. So I'm coming up with this, 1,000 stories. One, because I want memories, and one, because I hope a lot of people that's known me over the last 35 years can enjoy the stories with me. But also because I want my boys to know what an absolutely amazing life I've had in the line dance circuit, in the karate, all of that beforehand. So over the next 1,000 stories, what you're going to hear, which will hopefully take me right into my retirement and keep you entertained for 10 or 15 minutes at a go. I hope you enjoy it. So in the next few, you'll see my boys coming on asking me some questions. If you've got any questions, just attach them to the bottom of wherever this is going to be, on YouTube or on the new Facebook. And I hope to see you and ask me. Everyone's doing podcasts and different things. I'm going to give you different things. But what I am going to do is tell you a lot of stories that you don't know from behind the scenes. Because I've been everywhere. I'm retired now, so no one knows who I am anyway. So what I'm going to do is give you a load. Over the last 35 years, I've got loads of stuff that you have no idea. And you'll go, oh my God. And you'll know when it was, because there's big things that stand out for it. So over the next 1,000 stories, I'm going to keep you entertained with some shocking whistle-blowing stories as well. See you soon.
1,000 stories. Rob Fowler, real